All right, so let's get into it, chat. So we're going to watch this. This was like the main thing after the whole Vendy hunt.
Happy birthday to me. What fun. Who doesn't like a titillating mystery? What a fabulous way to celebrate our birthday. I'm so delighted you could all join me on this wonderful little adventure. My dear Vendy is quite fine, and the bunch of us had a lovely little vacation hanging with the Moai. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did. We are very excited for the year to come and what new types of phobies you might discover, among other things. Oh, happy birthday to all our phobies friends.
So that was the result of the Vendy find hunt. I was a little surprised that we didn't get a full trailer for what has since been announced officially by Ikore. There was an official announcement that was made that as of literally today, I mean, it was many hours ago at this point, but congratulations, Phobie Wrangler, you finally found Vendy. We commend all of you in your epic detective work. You are a true ARG Jedi. We hope you enjoyed the search, so now it's time to celebrate as we release our anniversary update on March 14th, 2023. And then it's the picture of Vendy and Lippy at the end on, not Easter Island, or maybe I guess it is supposed to be Easter Island. I think the last puzzle was coordinates to Easter Island. So I wanted to start out by talking about the update itself. Or not the update, but the Vendy search, we'll say. Quick aside, everybody, before we get into the actual content, I was accepted into the Phobies Content Affiliate Program, the content creator program, you might call it. Shout out to the Phobies team, and thank you for that. But the reason I'm telling you, everybody out there, dear viewer, dear listener, is to let everybody know that I do receive some compensation from the Phobies team as a result of being part of that program. Now, I loved Phobies before, and I still love Phobies now, and I expect I will still continue to love Phobies in the future. So look forward to more Phobies content coming from Random's Thoughts. So now, on with the show. So the main thing for me is I think this was actually pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. I'm curious what everybody else's thoughts, whether you're watching this live on stream or you're watching this on YouTube later. Like, how did you feel about it? I put a poll on my YouTube community page just to get people's feedback. And right now it's kind of 50-50 for the most part. There's a handful of people that said, nah, they would rather just have the update, which I get. We'll talk about that. At the time I last looked at it, literally half the people said, yeah, this was great. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. 40-something% of you said, I didn't even know what was going on. And I don't know if people are trolling me or what, because people were going wild over this. And that's something I wanted to comment on for parts of this, is that I think this is really well done. I expected something way simpler now the early puzzles were very simple, and it was comical how insane people were taking it. The way I described it offline was people were treating it like it was National Treasure and the Illuminati. And it was actually like an Easter egg hunt for when you were 6. The puzzles were very, very simple for the most part for a significant portion of this thing. The hardest part was trying to view the pictures because it was primarily only on Instagram, and I don't have an Instagram account, so I was trying to go by like people's teeny tiny screenshots, or once I found the links, like squint at the picture. That was basically it. That was the hardest part until the one from yesterday where it really started to get wild, and we were warned by Boss that, yeah, this one's going to be tough. I didn't get to participate in that one. I had real life stuff going on, so I was just kind of following along to see what was happening. But it was pretty cool how they did it. It was clearly well thought out. I will say that I think there are 2 criticisms that I would have of the entire thing. One, I think it should have been a lead up to the event. There's really no reason to delay the update. And it should have been 2 weeks ago, we were finding Vendy, and then, hey, we find Vendy on the actual anniversary, and they're like, all right, update tomorrow, or that day, or whatever. Quicker than this. ultimately, who cares? We delayed it a week, or it was delayed a week. Who cares? It's fine. It was fun to do this. I think it was cool. It was a great way to engage a lot of the community. That being said, when the last puzzle, and as chat's pointing out, the parts of the later puzzle where we got stuff for Will Wuffalo got to the point where it's, okay, we're really starting to stretch what feels quote-unquote reasonable to try and figure out. Now, ultimately, they had to go to those lengths in order to make Vendy and Lippy end up on Easter Island kind of thing, and for us to discover them. But there were parts of it, for example, the Mildred portion, that felt weird. The reason it felt weird is prior to that, we had the Home Sweet Home puzzle, which that was the one that people were going crazy, and it's like, that one is super obvious. Now, I personally would not have guessed LUV, but I love where Vendy's home, Lake Fear, completely makes sense. The Mildred one, where it was, I think that was the laptop password, that one was way... I thought that was unreasonable personally, because there are tons of real-life calendars that February 14th has. It felt like it was just disjointed enough. It was still fine. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining a ton. This is not a big deal, but that one felt a little disjointed. Yes, the calendar being off by the wrong month because it was on February and not March. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can hit up my Discord for a cleaner experience, because the Theory Hub was just exploding, which is good. Like, that was awesome. But it was a little... like I said, especially for the... one of the clues, people were just going off the deep end. And then they kind of needed to on the last one, which got wild, which was funny. But overall, I think this was a great success. It got a lot of people engaged in a way that they wouldn't have ordinarily. I think it is still fitting. One question I have, and I'm curious what people's thoughts are, especially since we just watched the end video. Do you think Vendy was kidnapped? Do you think Vendy staged this? Because one of the comments that I made offline is we're learning a lot about the Phobie world. They obviously can show up in real life because they're on Easter Island, apparently. We know that now there are, by definition, or we can infer, that there's a Phobie police department. So there have to be Phobie laws for the police to enforce, which opens up a lot of questions. But I think it's really cool learning this about the Phobie world and the interviews that they had, like all the little assets and things. I think this is really cool. But the reason why I question whether it was staged or kidnapped is exactly what chat's pointing out, because I noticed it as well. One of the last images is you see Vendy sitting on the beach, tied up. And if you're engaging the police for a missing person, you assume it wasn't voluntary. But the question was this all staged by Vendy and Lippy to do this? Or was this like, oh, we're kidnapping our friend and making them take a break and go on vacation because Vendy's been working so hard doing the coffee trades and pack trades and stuff like that? I don't know what the intent was there. I'm not sure. The question, though, is if phobies are visible in the human world. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if they're literally on Easter Island or they're inhabiting someone's mind that's on Easter Island at the time. You know what I mean? There's a lot of questions, but I think it's really cool to have these glimpses into the Phobie world. I've mentioned on many other occasions at this point that I would love to have them all, they're done with work for the day, aka playing the games. And then they all just go hang out at the bar. They all have a party. They have a birthday party. You know, they do these things where they have these lives. It's kind of cool. It's pretty cool. And I really enjoyed it. I thought the puzzles, for the most part, were very good. Personally, as I said before, I think they went a little bit far on some ends. But overall, I think it was great. And I'm excited to see if they do something like this in the future. It clearly wasn't, we slapped this together a couple months before the anniversary. No, they had this planned out. It is pretty cool to see how far the lengths the devs were willing to go to in order to have an enjoyable and fun set of puzzles. So shout out to the devs for that. I thought it was really good. Yeah, exactly, Doge. We have that shot of Vendy and Lippy hanging out together. Like, if Vendy was quote-unquote kidnapped, I think it was we're kidnapping our friend kind of thing. But Vendy being tied up does have that implication of maybe it wasn't... Like, I don't know what they're trying to convey here. And obviously, the departure was unexpected by the rest of the Phobies. Although, another thing to point out is we learned through the interrogations and the interviews that not all the Phobies like each other. Bo Mangles apparently doesn't give a damn about Vendy, which is very interesting. Maybe it's because Bo Mangles is mechanical and can't drink coffee. I don't know. I think Lippy and Vendy were planning to troll us. Yeah. I had mentioned that offline while it was still going on, that I'm curious whether this is Vendy was actually kidnapped and now there's a bad guy Phobie out there, or is it more that they staged it to be like, well, this is part of the birthday celebration. But I'm glad that a lot of people seem to have enjoyed this. But again, like I said, let me know down in the comments or in Discord to see, or let me know what your thoughts are. Do you want to see one of these again? What do you want to have come up? So as far as the Phobies go, we don't have like any information on them. There's not a whole lot of speculation to do. There are some things we can talk about. For example, we have a fair amount of information on Ice Cream, which, if I recall correctly, is a 1200 health 4-key that has a ranged freeze. I don't remember what the damage is, but right now, that Phobie seems really strong. That has a lot of potential. Now, notably, there are a bunch of fire Phobies. 410 is the damage? Gotcha. I mean, I'm sure you can calculate it because of the way the video was formatted. But I just couldn't remember it. So chat's saying a 1.2k health, 2 range, 410 attack with 1 move. How do we know 1 move? Does it move in the video? I don't remember it moving. It would have shown on the panel, though, right? It would have shown on the bottom panel, so that's probably on there. But I think that thing's pretty strong. It's fairly tanky. I don't remember, like, what's Bo Mangles or Stabby's health at level 1? Is it around that range? The potential for a freeze seems really strong as a turret. But by definition, this thing can't... It's probably... Well, it might not be bad on big maps, because it can present a unique threat in the freeze. The thing is other people have pointed out that fire Phobies are not exactly uncommon now, and they've only gotten more value in their stock as a result of this update. Gonzo has 1300 health and 400 damage, very similar. That's reasonable. The thing is that Gonzo's range isn't technically 2, it's really 4. Because you could juice a range Phobie and then send the range, like at max range, and then send the range Phobie in and hit a thing at range. Whereas this has to do its thing itself. So I get the comparison. But it does have some nuances to it. I think introducing a low-cost freeze like that is pretty cool. Snowball obviously becomes significantly more relevant. We'll have to see if we get other low-cost fire Phobies, because we have Fire Ants, we have Boss, we have Evo 3.0. But there aren't a ton of fire Phobies. The question is, can you mount a reasonable offense, freeze something salient, and blow it up? Like, what are you going to freeze early game if you inch that thing up on, say, a small map? An opposing Stabby? The only low-cost fire Phobie is Snowball? Yes, but I'm curious. We don't, at this time, know how many Phobies we're getting. So this will be an interesting time capsule exercise for when we get the update, because by the time I edit this, it's going to go up later. But now there's a Mind Control Phobie. We'll get to that. And Puff? Puff also, but most people I don't think are anywhere near Puff. So it's basically a non-factor for most players. Definitely relevant, but mostly a non-factor. I don't think it's going to be oppressive initially, just because Snowball exists, and now it's just you need to put more effort into preserving your Snowball in order to possibly have to shish kebab one of your own guys. I think that that's going to be a relevant play. Is that enough to push this thing out? I don't think so. But it definitely neuters the power just because Snowball exists and everybody will get Snowball if you play long enough. So I'm glad that they have that kind of foresight for these things. I'm curious at how this guy plays, and I definitely want to try him out. It looks pretty cool. But other phobies that we know, one of them, Creepy Devil, is another invisibility phobie similar to Sasquatch, which I think is pretty cool. I don't think we have any information on any of the stats or cost or anything like that. And I'm curious whether it is actually going to have the same invisibility as Sasquatch. Why am I curious about that? Because it's entirely possible that it just turns invisible but doesn't get the damage bonus. I'm curious if he's going to die if he gets stepped on. I think that is going to be baked into every ability that's invisible. I don't think you can do it any other way. I mean, they don't have to. It is possible to not do it. If you don't give him the backstab damage, then okay, well, he's just invisible, and then when he engages, it's a surprise. The Phobies team thus far has been pretty good about not just making, oops, it's this thing, but slightly tweaked. I mean, we do joke about that. Motherlode and Flesh Crawler come to mind, and there are other examples, but they've been pretty good for the most part about making things that are, it's new and unique. Now, that being said, it is possible that this thing is just going to be, invisibility is inherently unique enough, so they just make it identical to Sasquatch, and it costs different, and that's the main thing. We'll have to see. Possible trailer tomorrow? I fully expect we're going to get a trailer tomorrow. At the time of this recording, it's the Sunday before the update. We're supposed to get the update on Tuesday. I fully expect a trailer tomorrow. I don't see why they wouldn't unless they wanted it to release alongside the update, which is also possible. Very hard to make unique things every time. I think at this, they still have tons of room. There aren't that many Phobies. There aren't that many Phobies right now. Card games have been doing, as in, we're talking like Magic the Gathering, the WoW TCG, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! And yes, they've had many derivative things over the years. But they've also had tons of original ideas, and they produce thousands of cards a year. Unique new cards. Many of them are just functional reprints. But even if you're just doing slight deviations, eventually you end up with a whole unique palette. I think there's tons of room to make a new, unique invisibility phobie. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same. Thing is, Sasquatch is already relatively cheap, and this gets 1k damage buff, so Devil is more than 5 keys. Probably going to get even more dangerous when invisible. Possibly. Possibly. Assuming that it has the same backstab, but we don't know. If the Mind Control Phobie exists, I'm pretty sure we can have Phobie that can steal copy of Phobie's ability. They are both similar, but different, complex coding issues is what I would think. Now, I'm not a programmer. I have programming experience, but it's been many years. Certainly not to the level of the complexity of this game, or many other games for that matter. Point is that I don't think it's as simple as, oh, well, we already have a mind control phobie. Let's take that and repurpose it so that we can make a copy ability phobie. I could see how that could work, but in the past, it's come up that the devs have stated that Glob is the buggiest phobie in the game, far and away. And, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I absolutely also think that all of these things we're suggesting, I mean, the mind control phobie Will Wuffalo is probably going to be in the same bucket where it's just going to be so buggy. Not like, oh my god, we're going to have so many bugs on patch day. No, it's just, I'm sure that thing went through an enormous amount of testing in order to make that even remotely feasible. You know what I mean? I'm very curious because one of the other questions that's come up off stream is how many phobies are we going to get? So for the last 2 updates, if you discount, and we're talking full disclosure and Carnival, if you discount stress level phobies that came in full disclosure, we've gotten 8 each. We were, quote unquote, supposed to get an update in the winter that did not come. Winter being, it would have, timing wise, ended up around Christmas. I'm not asking the devs to do that because everybody should get a holiday. It's a common holiday thing around that time of year. So why ask the devs to do something when it would have been both a big undertaking leading up, a big undertaking for launch, and then a big undertaking afterwards to support? Because if there's bugs that were missed, if there's an issue with the rollout, if there's this, if there's that. I'm not saying the devs should do it. But the question then becomes, okay, well, were there phobies that would have been slated for that update that did not happen? And if there were, do they get rolled into this one? So if we assume baseline 8 for this update, do we now get 16? Do we get a few extra? Because my suggestion offline was between 8 and 20 phobies. 8 for the baseline, and then up to 20, because if you get 16, then maybe they throw in a few extra because, hey, it's the 1 year. What do we get? I don't know if we're going to do that. One of the interesting things that I'll hopefully remember to put up here is one of the clues for, I think it was Will Wuffalo, on one of the ID cards in the Find Vendy event, had 002/047, aka 2 of 47. So are there 47 phobies coming? I highly doubt that, but it would be really cool to have that big of an infusion of phobies into the game. It'll completely upend things, hypothetically anyway. You got to get the phobies and get them leveled up too. The other option is maybe we're getting 47 phobies over the course of the year. I don't know. We'll see. What are we assuming Dial can do? So for those who are unsure, hopefully I'll put it up over there. Dial is, I believe, the TV phobie. I have no idea, but I assume it's one movement. I assume it's one movement. Beyond that, clearly mechanical. Maybe electrical damage. Somebody had said this offline, I agree. It could have a stun ability, either a stun or a lock in place, because, you know, like the whole thing, well, TV zombifies you, you know, you zone out when you're watching TV. So maybe it has like Dozer and Rusty and it pins something in place. I think that would be kind of cool. The thing is, that feels somewhat obvious. So maybe, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Phobies team comes up with something completely different and wild. A stun as an actual stun, where you can't unfreeze it kind of thing, would have to, A, last less time than the, than a freeze. But hypothetically, is super duper powerful. So I'd be interested to see how the Phobies team balances it from a cooldown perspective, that sort of thing, if it exists. Dial looks like Zappy in a way. It's possible. The theme for this still is kind of eluding me, other than it's the anniversary birthday celebration. There isn't a unifying theme. Like, full disclosure was, these are all alien phobies. Carnival was, hey, it's creepy carnival and Halloween themed things. What is the theme for this? We don't really know. I guess we will find out with the trailer. It could just be, here's a random assortment of phobies and monsters that the dev team thinks are cool. Works for me, but I'm just curious if there is a through line with all of the different phobies that we're gonna get from this, however many they happen to be. Do we think Golem is going to be a new phobie? I think Golem will be a phobie at some point. Is it going to be in this update? I could see it riding the pine and being in a later update. I could see it coming in later on. But yeah, I don't think, and for people who are unsure, again, hopefully I'll put it up there, but this is what started it all off. Was Golem. Maybe he's going to be another shop-type phobie. I was kind of expecting that through the course of it, that they were going to replace Cardboard Vendy here with Golem, Coffee Guy. We technically knew about Dial for a while, so I'm guessing these updates have been in the works. Same with Daisy. Yeah, a lot of this stuff, like Daisy, Garlic Sparky, which is another one that I could hypothetically show up here. Dial. We've seen screenshots of them being in-game, right? Or other icons related to the game, whether it's literally in a game or it's the client or whatever. The point is that a lot of these phobies, and I'm sure there are many more that we haven't witnessed, of course, are already in the test and dev environments for the team. They 100% have more phobies. How many? Who knows? But I'm confident there's a ton more that are ready to go, but they're not releasing them because they don't like the direction they're in. It's not appropriate at this time. They want to do something else. The idea isn't working. It needs more time in the oven, whatever. There's a lot of valid reasons as to why it would or would not make an appearance. But it would be foolish to think that they're just coming up with these on the spot. You know what I mean? I'm not saying anybody's putting that out there, but yeah, Onion Sparky. That's another one that could be here. If Golem does come out as a phobie, then we can look at many things in the main hub world that could point to new future phobies. Yeah, probably. I mean, even these guys over here under the arena spot, like, we still don't really know what they are. There's an argument that maybe, I've talked about it before, the bigger one is maybe Quagmire, but the snake thing, I don't know, it could be anything. Could be anything. Wonder if there's going to be some balance changes finally. So that's the other piece I want to talk about. So balance stuff is interesting because I'm not sure. I expect there will be a balance update. Like if I had to choose, I would say yes, there's going to be a balance update. What is there going to be? I have no idea, because here's the thing. And I'm going to analogy time. When it's spoiler time for card games, it's especially with modern games, you start spoiling the next set. It's like you release a set and you immediately start spoiling the next one in some games. Won't name the games, but the spoiler season can start very early, like really early. So as a result, you don't naturally have the context for what the rest of the set is going to be. So if you get a phobie, or in this case, a card in the case of the example, you don't necessarily have any idea what's going on. So if we say they released to us the balance updates early, we don't know whether those are good or bad balance updates, because we're going to get a bunch of new phobies, possibly some new changes, whether it's to the UI, new maps, adjusting existing maps, whatever, because these are all things that could happen. And it would be cool to see a lot of this stuff, because I think there's a lot of quality of life stuff that many people, myself included, have been suggesting over time. And this would be a good time to just kind of bulk dump a bunch of these things in. So the issue becomes, we don't have all the information. We can speculate. Yeah, sure. Boss, Gonzo, those are common ones. Evo 3.0 is another common one. Maybe these phobies don't matter in the new world because the ones that are coming in invalidate them in some way, or are direct counters and are not so pigeonholed that they're useless unless those things show up. There's a lot of ways to look at it. I hope that there are balance updates. I imagine there will be, but we'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of things that could come up. But chat and YouTube, let me know what you're looking forward to. Or by the time this goes live, the update will have already been deployed. It will already be in client. We'll already be trying to race to get the new phobies. So let me know, what were you most excited about before? Did you get what you wanted? Did you get something that you wanted but you didn't know you wanted? Let me know. I'm excited. I am really excited about this update. There's a lot of cool things. I'm waiting to see. Waiting for those packs. Waiting for the packs. Like I said earlier, we might do a surprise stream. It's not really a surprise since I'm telling everybody, but we might have an out-of-band stream one day this week, depending on how the update goes. My biggest concern is how Will is going to work, because he seems really powerful and can control enemy phobies. I agree with you. So, and thank you for the follow, Warzius. I meant to bring this up before, and then we kind of got sidetracked. Will Wuffalo is going to be very interesting. There's a lot of ways that this could go catastrophically bad. Let's take a second and think about this. From general gaming experience, when you introduce something new like that, one of the common, and we don't really know how the Phobie devs are going to handle this. We just don't have enough information. A lot of devs will play it safe. And by that, I mean, they'll release, oh my God, the mind control Phobie is just going to be broken. But when they release the first mind control Phobie, it's hot garbage. Because they don't want to push the envelope and go, the game is broken and now we need to spend months trying to repair it by pissing everybody off and all this stuff. Now, there are tons of genres, namely MOBAs, where they release the new stuff and then they just go, well, good luck, everybody. The new stuff is busted and you're just going to have to get your dick knocked in the dirt for a few months until we feel like fixing it. Like that's a meme, but it does happen. And there are times where other games have done similar things, but I don't really know whether the Phobies team would release something. I mean, yes, you could argue Beauty, for example, but do they release the new, mechanically new power in... They're not going to intentionally release it as overpowered, but do they try and push the envelope a little bit? Because they're like, I don't know if this is really going to make it. Let's bump it up a little bit over the course of testing. And then it comes out and it's too strong. Or are they going to ratchet it back and go, well, this thing... There's a big risk here. We're going to play it safe, and then this thing is just not going to be... We're not taking any chances, because it could just be catastrophic. So they play it safe, and then it's actually garbage. Because I think that this sort of ability can be... It can go either way, where it's just going to be dominant in a lot of cases, and other times it's just going to get crapped on. Not really sure. We'll have to play it by ear, but I'm very curious to see how it goes. Imagine it just controls the 3.0 and wipes their squad. Those, I guarantee we're going to be getting a ton of replays with whoever gets Will Wuffalo first. We're going to get a ton of these, and they're going to be hilarious. But the general thing is, we've seen crazy play. We had a Sucky game earlier where Sucky dominated the game, for heaven's sake. Like, the bottom line is any Phobie, just about, Rusty excluded, and I guess hypothetically you could have a highlight reel for Rusty too, but any Phobie could be busted under the right circumstances. But the question is, can you make those circumstances materialize, and how regularly? And that's the bottom line. If it turns out Will Wuffalo is 9 keys and it's paper thin and it has a 20-turn warm-up, like, okay, this thing's crap. It doesn't matter if I take their Evo, because I never will. You know what I mean? I can think of him being pretty weak, similar to Kaboom being very powerful but easily killed off. Absolutely. It could also be maybe the mind control hurts you and your team as long as you keep it going or something, where it ends up, yeah, he's tanky, but he outputs very little damage. He's slow. And I mean, in the screenshot, I'll try and put it up there, Will is the bug, but the Phobie that it's, I guess, manipulating looks like an undead whale. So I imagine it's a 1-mover, plus given how powerful the ability is, it's probably a 1-mover. Or the hypothetical power level for it. There's a lot of ways that this could go. I don't know. I'm very anxious to see what it actually looks like. Because it's funny, a couple weeks ago, we've been talking about Bad Sushi as a fish friend. Yeah, we're getting more undead watery creatures. Aquatic creatures. But we were talking about a potential mind control Phobie on stream a couple weeks ago, I think. And we've done it multiple times, but yeah. It could be like Furkin Glob, where it's slow, can't attack, but has high range. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say Glob has high range, but I get where you're going, yeah. Pretty sure it's not going to have attack like another Smiley, really good ability, but the lack of attack and movement nerf enough. I think that's a reasonable way to look at it. That, yeah, this thing literally cannot attack. It has its ability. That's how it attacks. But the question becomes, that like the important crux of it is, how long does it last? Can you do it right away? What's the range? I mean, I'm now listing a lot of stuff, but how long does it last on the Phobie? Does it do anything to the Phobie? How does that because if you give the Phobie back, does it always count against your opponent's Phobie count? And if it does, that's even worse for them. But if it does not, and you give it back, what happens if they maxed out in the meantime? Like, how does the game handle that? That will, to all those people out there that keep suggesting the idea of Phobies that split or Phobies that spawn Phobies, that will immediately tell you whether it's even possible in the client. Because if they can do that, they can do the other things. It may not be, we jump from one to the next immediately, but if they can allow you to temporarily go over your phobie count, then we immediately know that it's possible for summon phobies, for example. That sort of thing. It's at least possible. Is it going to happen? Clearly, we don't know. I imagine it would not allow you. If I had to guess, it's going to permanently take the phobie, maybe even kill itself in the process. Like, it may be similar to Zamboni, where Zamboni takes self-damage. It may literally take 100% of its health in damage, and you just take their guy. I want to know how it walks. Bad Sushi just flops like he got out of the trash. It'll be like the ghosts from Bubble Bobble. There's a deep cut if you remember that game. I bet most people out there have no idea what I'm talking about. Go Google Bubble Bobble for the NES and look up what the monsters were. What I wonder is if it can control mechanicals. I don't see any reason that it couldn't. We don't know if this thing's an alien. We just know that it's a parasite. Like, if you wanted... The devs could make it where it can only control monsters, for example, or something. Self-sacrifice? Yeah, that's what I was saying, DT. I wouldn't be surprised if it did that. But lore-wise, you can justify it mind-controlling anything, or only mind-controlling certain things. It just depends. Maybe when it's in a victim, it takes X amount of damage each turn until it dies. And you can't cancel it, but you can still control it until it dies. Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of ways, because I've thought the same thing. We've talked about it on stream. There's a lot of ways that this could be handled, and I'm excited to see, because this is a net new mechanic. We don't have anything really comparable to this, which is really cool. Self-sacrifice and it'll be Rusty 2.0. You think it's going to be that bad, DT? I mean, honestly, that I think is the most reasonable way, that it just dies when you use the ability, and then that inherently limits how powerful it's going to be. Because your opponent, if they know you have access to it, okay, now that has to change their game plan. They don't want to go tall on a singular phobie. It's like, oh, I'm just going to steal your boss. Not only am I removing it, I get your boss. So I can spawn a boss on top of it, which would be hilarious. Not if you're on the other end of it, but like, you get the idea. Then again, long term, when everyone has these phobies, is that going to, like, are you just going to have wars where you trade back and forth mind controlling each other's phobies? I don't know. This is going to get weird. I'm hopeful for Ice Cream, another freeze turret. We've got the beginnings of a freeze team. I want it to be balanced, but making it self-sacrifice kind of a womp-womp moment ruins the fun. I think it can be balanced then. What if it confers a buff when it self-sacrifices? Like, there's lots of ways to handle it. Maybe it gives a key refund when you mind control it and it doesn't self-sacrifice. You know, like, we're only throwing out ideas here. Because it's a net new mechanic, it could be anything. It could even be a boat. Like, the ideas are arguably limitless. Arguably, because clearly there's some constraints. Also, with these new phobies, we may see the stress level 130 and 140 soon to figure out what they are and do. We should get 130 soon. 140 is still a ways off. Unless somebody dumps a bunch of money in, one of the people like Hoploy or somebody who is close enough, I think we're still pretty far off from 140. Even with these new phobies. Like, it depends on how many phobies we get, but even then, you need so many levels to get to the next thing that it's going to be tough. Glob is arguably a better freeze, can't be unfrozen. Fair. If you have paddles, yes. If you have paddles. But there's no, I mean, we have seen a bunch of those plays. I've seen a bunch of those. Alright, chat. So, chat, we got through all the game breakdowns. We talked about the Vendy hunt. And now, it's the waiting game both for the trailer and, of course, the update itself. Like I mentioned earlier, let me know in Discord, YouTube, let me know down in the comments. By the time this goes live, well, we'll already have the update in hand. So I'm curious what you were excited about. Did you get it? Are you disappointed? What'd you feel about the Vendy event? What are you looking forward to? Because there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm excited. I'm excited. I hope everybody out there both had fun with the Vendy hunt as well as hopefully a lot of fun to be had with this update. But that's going to do it for tonight, chat. I'm beat. I'm really tired. We'll be back for some variety tomorrow. I see Luffy's already pushing for hunt. We'll see. We'll see. So everybody, make sure you go say thank you. Let the devs know how you felt about things. The feedback is absolutely important. It is important to get feedback for these things. But chat, I really am exhausted. I need to rest. We'll see if we get a surprise stream. Cat may be out of the bag if I'm saying it's a surprise, but you get the idea. If we get a bonus stream later this week. But for now, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Black Lives Matter.